Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Cryptids and Monsters video. Alright, let's go ahead and let's do another entry here. This one kind of based on a new suggestion in the sense that I was following that suggestion and then it led me to this cryptid here. So I may still do that other suggestion in a later video, but once I saw the information related to this cryptid, it was so fascinating to me that it just made me wonder again how amazing the world is. Even to this day, even after all these cryptids, hundreds of them that I've featured on this channel, there's stuff out there that still causes me to pause and wonder about this world. But it has to do with this. In fact, you're looking at a picture, very loose picture of it. Now, the problem is there's not much evidence associated with it. But when I present this information, you'll realize how memorable it is. It's known as the Celofay. So let's go ahead and let's talk about that creature here. I'll present as much information as possible. It also has some locales that are apparently its home. So those of you that are on a local level, you may have a chance of seeing this cryptid, or more importantly, hearing on it. More on that in a moment. So let's go ahead and let's talk about that here. So what is the Celofay? Well, it actually goes by several different names altogether. In fact, one portion of it, at least at an earlier time, in the older times, it used to be known as the Lucifay. Kind of sounds weird, right? It sounds like Lucifer, but instead it's Lucifay. And yet in other periods, it's known as a weird version of the deer wolf. I don't know exactly how that link is there, but apparently it is. And so in either case, those are some of the older names tied to it. But for the sake of this video, I'm going to call it the Celofay. It is a creature that is apparently found there in Maine. Those of you that follow the Stephen King novels know that Maine is definitely the hometown featured within many of those stories. All those weird situations, sometimes demonic situations, happening there with weird creatures and strange encounters. It would make sense that this would be a home associated with it. But you could also find it there in Vermont, New Hampshire, and then apparently Massachusetts. And those of you that are Canadian are apparently have some locations for the Celofay too. It has been there for a good time period, at least the early 1900s. It's its first sighting, and it's apparently going on to this day, but it's really, really rare to catch a sighting of it, let alone any physical evidence, because apparently there's only a population of one. That's it, one. And then once that's gone, the creature could be 100% extinct, or who knows, there could be more of them out there. They just happen to be very well hidden. As far as its physical characteristics, here again is where it ties to it being hard to describe, because essentially it's so hard to see, so hard to visualize, at least catch it out in the open, and let alone try to have any kind of photographic or video proof. But imagine, if you would, a wildcat slash bobcat slash lynx. And that's essentially what you have here. It may be a different color. It may have like a bluish color to it. Maybe a little bit larger too. In fact, it's supposed to be considered more of a giant when it comes to those type of feline families. So if you take your average bobcat and maybe increase it a little bit larger, that's essentially the creature in of itself. It seems like those characteristics are all the same physically as well. Maybe the color again is a little different. Where things change drastically though is this. It's known as a ventriloquist. That's right. That's why I wanted to feature it here within this channel. That's why it kind of bumped up from the other channel. I'm sorry, from the other suggestion for this channel. It's because once I heard that this is a creature that can throw its voice, instantly that stood out. It uses that ability to essentially be able to catch its prey. So hear me out, no pun intended. What it does is it throws its voice expertly, in fact, when it's on the hunt. So let's say you're out there in the forest. Let's say the Celofay happens to see you and you don't see it, but it sees you. What happens next is it'll start throwing its voice in different directions. It could throw it to the left. It could throw it in front of you. It could throw it far away from you. And in other cases, it could be right nearby. Even though its location hasn't changed, at least perpendicular to you, its voice has. In fact, it has an almost scream-like yowl that can come from any direction And when that happens, the whole theme associated with it is intimidation. You don't know where that voice is coming from. You obviously can't see that as far as the Celofay because of its expert hiding skills. But there it is, throwing that voice in so many directions that you in turn start panicking. You start going paranoid. You start being scared at anything that comes about or is heard, or your mind starts playing games with you and so on. And when that happens, then the Celofay pretty much has you because it starts directing you to where it wants you to go. So let's say there's a trap. Let's say that there's a hidden location, probably to the left, and there it's a dead end. You don't know it, but the Celofay does. And so maybe it starts throwing its voice more towards the right, starts leading you over there. All of a sudden, you find yourself next to a giant wall, and then that's it. The Celofay has you, and then it basically comes right at you, kills you, and then eats you. And that's essentially what it does. It uses its magical voice almost to be able to do so, and it can do so for a long, long time. So besides throwing it in whichever direction possible, it can also do it for so many hours that the whole point is to tire you out. You could be running in one direction thinking that you're going to escape it, and then the voice appears right next to you. That's one of the scariest things too. This Celofay can apparently throw its voice to make it seem like it's so far away, but it's actually just a few feet right next to you, and you would have no idea. Anyways, though, when it does that, it tires you out, and then you've lost all energy, all composure. You just want to pass out. And again, that's when it's finished stalking its prey, and you are next a meal ticket for it. And then on top of that, the creature itself can apparently enjoy this method. Apparently, it has an ability to, I guess, have some kind of pleasure associated with this, and it in turn favors humans. Now, its other prey can include the following: bears. Can you imagine that? Bears. Usually bears are like top of the chain when it comes to any kind of wildlife out there in the forest, but no, the Celofay apparently has it on its meal list. It also has coyotes, wolves, dogs, cats, and then of course people. And those are the ones that stand out for it. At least that's where it has, again, this type of pleasure associated with its hunt. Other things associated with the Celofay is this: it's the idea that the yowls that it makes out there are also a form of, I guess you could call it, defensiveness, something like this. What I mean is, when it doesn't want humans around its location, it will in turn do those huge yowls, those huge nocturnal screams all the way into the night, who knows for how long. The whole idea is that it's supposed to, again, intimidate and scare people, and they in turn stay away. So in some cases, it doesn't throw its voice. Essentially, it does its voice in a very loud manner, so that way everyone can hear from who knows how far away. In fact, some of the story goes, there was a report by a gentleman named T.H. Gray there in a magazine or a newspaper, something called Down East Maine, and it said that when the Lucifay, which is again one of the older names tied to the Celofay, stated while Lucifay never attacked humans, her nocturnal screams scared the daylights and night darts, which are the nighttime counterparts of daylights, out of people in the area. So it does it again as a way to make sure that it stays by itself and that there's no chance of anybody coming across it. Maybe, and sometimes it realizes that humans can be a danger, so it'd much rather have humans stay away. Meanwhile, it's hunting bears, or it's hunting something else that are simpler, or in some cases easier to do so. And then when that happens, then it switches gears when it comes to that. One thing, though, to showcase as far as the Celofay and maybe what it could be mistaken for is this: the Canada lynx. It's apparently a real-life northern wildcat that's found there in Maine. Again, this favorite setting of Stephen King and certain parts of Canada. And so sometimes, apparently, when people hear those type of eerie calls, apparently the Canadian lynx does this same call as well. It does it during mating seasons, and it does it during territorial disputes. So sometimes when people think, oh no, it's the Celofay, it's out there, let's get away from here, all they're hearing is just a normal Canadian lynx doing normal activities throughout its area and then for its populations. But again, they could be misinterpreted for the actual Celofay itself. But that's pretty much it. That's all the information associated with this very unique creature, a cryptid ventriloquist. How about that, right? I thought I would never ever come across something like this within my channel, but lo and behold I have, and so I'm going to go ahead and share it here. Let me know what you guys' thoughts and comments are on there too. Those of you that are in Maine, those of you that are again in the Canadian areas, maybe even Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, if there's more local information or you ever heard these cries associated with the Celofay, let me know as well. One last thing too, actually, one tiny little tidbit. If you want to make sure you're safe from the Celofay, ignore those howls, those voices that are being thrown left and right to you. Head straight home. Continue on the path that you think you are, that you're supposed to go. Even if it seems like it's going to be right next to you, ignore it because it is in turn playing with you and it wants you to go to a different direction. So that's at least one little tidbit of safety. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care. Bye.